Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Brode from Deep Knowledge Investing. We provide actionable investment ideas and timely market commentary to hedge fund managers, portfolio managers, RIAs, family offices, high net worth individuals. Basically, we help people get better returns in the equity portion of their portfolios. I'm excited to be here today with our partners at Terra Group to talk to you about all kinds of interesting innovations in the area of green technology, sustainable energy, and consumer products. So before we launch into today's program, I just want to give you guys a preview. In the next few weeks, we have programming coming up on CBD-related consumer products, innovations in charitable giving, and some really interesting farming technology. So please stay tuned over the next few weeks, and we're going to be bringing you a ton of great information. Today, we are really excited to be here with Andy MacLellan, and we're going to be talking to you about Terra Green Destinations. First of all, Andy, thank you so much for doing this. Really great to see you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to talk about Terra Green Destinations, which is our newest company that we're launching.
Great. So for everyone who's listening, I have had the benefit of talking to Andy at length about what they're doing in terms of building eco-friendly resorts. It's a fantastic story, but the place where I'd love to start is, Andy, we are going to have your full bio, which is extensive, up on the Terra website. For people who are curious, go check it out, and you'll see that Andy has done incredible things in the real estate area for decades. But for the people who are just tuning in right now and getting to know you, why don't you take a couple of minutes and go through some of the highlights of your bio and let people really understand about your deep background in real estate and resort development.
Well, sure. I'll try to make it as brief as possible. I appreciate the opportunity, and I guess everything that I've done in the past sort of prepares me for what we're doing now. I was in the corporate world on 3 different occasions with 3 of the larger hotel companies at the corporate level. Everything from head of resorts for Westin to vice chairman and president of Dulce International, and I got a lot of corporate experience. That's when I was first introduced to the actual development piece of the puzzle. We were involved in everything from 3-star to 5-star hotels and resorts. But probably more importantly, on the entrepreneurial side, we've launched 3 different companies prior to this. Starting with the Scottford, which is still in existence, that does development. We did, for example, the 13,000 beds for the Olympics in Atlanta back in '96. In addition, we've done pre-development for JetBlue for their lodge. We've done award-winning hotels, which we're still involved in Iowa, on the Mississippi. A new urbanism development on the coast of Texas, on Mustang Island. We've also done Sundance Resort in conjunction with Robert Redford to do a redesign and renovation of that. A lot of development. In addition, we launched a marketing platform with Discovery Communications called Discovery Destinations. As I said, all in preparation for Terra Green Destinations, which is a way for us to be able to pull together unique resorts around the world that are either sustainable or on their way to being sustainable or have the potential to be sustainable. So just a little bit of background, but like you said, there should be a lot more information on the website with regard to my background and everybody else involved in Terra, by the way, because Terra is much broader than Terra Green Destinations. Terra Technologies, Terra Organics, and all of those come into play in the Terra Green Destinations group.
All right, great. Well, so before we jump into a deeper explanation of Terra Green Destinations and what differentiates it, I just want to remind the people who are listening, you guys probably will have great questions. Just use the chat function, send questions to me, and I'll try to make sure the best ones get asked to Andy. So Andy, let's talk a little bit about Terra Green Destinations. What is it exactly? And how are we going to distinguish it from other brands, other independents, or just, if you want to go somewhere nice, why not just an Airbnb, a VRBO, something like that?
All right. So I guess the way to describe Terra Green Destinations is these are high-end, generally high-end hotels and resorts that are either sustainable or have the ability to become sustainable. And I'll address what we mean by sustainable in a little bit. They've got to be experiential by nature. They've got to be independent. In other words, these are not branded properties that we're all very familiar with. They are definitely not cookie cutter. They're something that is very different. They're tied to not only sustainability but conservation of the environment. We'll talk a little bit more about what kinds of developments we're doing, and you'll understand more about that later. We also have an educational component that deals with the surrounds and the education of the environment there. So again, unique. I call them in a way sort of irreplaceable type of destinations that are so unique and so different that they can't be branded. They can't be a part of a larger group that makes that has a sort of a cookie cutter approach.
Okay, so if you were to go to one of these resorts, what kind of experiences are you offering? What's different or better about it?
Well, it's pretty location based. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ones that we have. For example, that we're in the process of negotiating. One is an oasis in the desert in northern Mexico. And when I say oasis, it has natural waters that come out at 108 degrees that have all kinds of minerals and so forth, as well as cold waters. In the same area, there are petroglyphs. There are all kinds of wildlife, not to mention the fact that the utilization of the water can be used for healing. It can be used for the spa. It can be used for any number of things. So in that particular case, those experiences have to do with anything from the waters to a wellness and health spa area to, hiking and going through the petroglyphs, et cetera, et cetera. Horseback riding in the desert. It's surrounded by a dry lake bed, so there's plenty of area to do those kinds of experiences. So that's very unique. Whereas another project that we're working on is a private island in the Caribbean, very close to the Blue Hole, for example, and for the Heritage Shelf. So diving is a big deal there. But in addition to other marine experiences. So it is very location based, but they're very experiential. They're in areas that are either are being conserved or should be conserved, and we're in the process, and we can accrue to that conservation. So I don't know if that answers your question, but the reality is it's very different, and yet what we're trying to create in all of these is something that is unique, utilizing the indigenous flower, fauna, culture, history, geography to make the experience very, very different from what you would experience almost any other place.
Yeah, and that was something we talked about for the people who are joining in and listening. I just want to put it in there that the resort that Andy was talking about in the Caribbean, it's on a private island. It sounds amazing. I actually suggested that we film this on location there, and for some reason it didn't get approved. I'm still angry. And
that's the next one,
right? Yeah. That's always the promise, Andy. I always say the next one. So I'm
blame it on COVID.
What's that?
We can blame it on COVID.
Yeah,
everybody else
we're going to blame it on something, but I think we should do the next one on location. So have you guys? Where do things stand? Have you started construction on any sites right now? Are you acquiring sites and just rebranding them? And how many destinations can you acquire, partner on, get opened in 2022, 2023? Give us a sense of the what's in front of you, the construction and the opening schedule.
All right. So we're doing a number of things in tandem. Number one, we are a fund. So we're in the process. we've opened the fund. We're in the process of generating the funds for the fund. That then allows us to close on the properties that we've currently got teed up. We are not in construction in any other than we have done the planning, we've done the programming, and as soon as we close on the properties, we will be able to start either renovation construction, depending on what the situation is. The island in the Caribbean needs renovation initially, and then there'll be some additions. We plan to do within 2022 4 to 5 properties. These are, some of them are far flung. We're talking about one in the UAE, possibly the Maldives, possibly obviously Mexico that I mentioned, the Caribbean. We also have 2 to 3 sites in the United States that we could potentially do within this year. I think realistically, we're probably talking about 4 or 5. And then going forward, depending on the size of the fund, depending on what the velocity is of our acquisitions, I would say 4 to 5 each year, maybe more, just depending on what we're able to do at the time.
And when you talk about 4 to 5 in 2022, do you mean you'd start construction, you'd make an acquisition, or are you actually thinking you can get 4 to 5 open in 2022?
Both, all with the acquisitions and our partnerships. There are a couple of deals that we're talking about that are actual partnerships with the existing owners, allowing them and giving them the wherewithal to do the kind of development that we're talking about. So some of them that just need to be renovated easily could open this year. A couple of others that are ground up, particularly if we use the luxury tent concept that we have, could potentially also be open this year. So let's just say of the 4 or 5, at least 3 of those are existing and could potentially be open after we go in and do our renovation, implement the sustainable technologies that Terra has, and we should be able to go this year.
Got it. Okay. So who are the audiences for these resorts, these destinations?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because these kinds of properties, particularly since they are generally in resort areas, sort of transcend demographics. We see the millennials traveling a lot. They have disposable income. They want to have experiences. They do not want to go to a branded hotel on a beach someplace. And then you've got the young families, families that are trying to create experiences for their children, for their families, make memories. These again are targeted for them. And then you've got the empty nesters who at this point have raised their families and they're ready to go start doing some things, maybe doing some bucket list things and going to places where, again, they haven't been, but also a place where they can get an experience that they haven't experienced before. And then you have a very active group of seniors, again, with disposable incomes. And the difference there is that they've got time. Many of them are retired. Many of them are able then to go out and do whatever they want to do, whenever they want to do. So I think it really does transcend demographics. Is it for everyone? No. This is for generally active people that want to go do fun things, learn things, that is different than staying at a Ritz-Carlton someplace, quite frankly.
Okay. So if you're competing with maybe some of the high-end resorts, but with a more active, differentiated, nature-based experience, what kind of standard of luxury are you guys being targeted? Because I get the sense that you're not talking about, a tent with a wooden floor or a cabin out in the woods somewhere.
No, I think probably the best way to quantify it, and it's not necessarily a good way because it's kind of a corporate quantification, but they're either 4 or 5 star. Now, in terms of how do you get that quantification, AAA does diamonds, 4 to 5 diamonds. And what used to be Mobile, which is now Forbes, that gives out the stars, it would be 4 to 5 stars. Now you hear every now and then people talking about 6+ star. There really isn't a category for that. But what that means is that it's just way over the top. Will we have some that are over the top? Yes. We have a couple that we're looking at that would be, but in general, they're high end 4 to 5 star, which means that they're not necessarily out of the realm of affordability, particularly at the 4-star level. And again, location will dictate what the costs are in terms of being able to stay there. But it's not uncommon, and it's not dissimilar to what you would be paying, quite frankly, probably less than in a corporate hotel in an urban area at the 4 and 5-star level. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, very, very clearly. So is a traditional hotel the right revenue model in terms of the customer experience, or are you guys thinking about some sort of all-inclusive resort, a timeshare product, Airbnb, a vacation club? What's the model for the customers?
Yeah, it's very definitely a resort model that has all kinds of elements, excursions, experiences, etc., food and beverage. But they will also, in several of the deals that we're looking at, potentially have a residential component. So in that case, we will have a vacation management company to take over the rental of some of the homes that might be developed in the general area. We have a couple of deals that already have a residential component. So we would garner some of the ones that are currently there that would fit our profile to be able to enhance or augment the resorts that we have. So those are the only two. It's not an Airbnb model, and it's not a timeshare model to any degree.
Got it. All right. So one of the things that you've emphasized along the way is that these are green properties, they're sustainable properties. Let's talk about that, because as we know, the traditional hospitality business just has a huge environmental footprint. What are you guys doing differently?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you look at overall industries, you could say that the hospitality industry is a smokeless industry. But as you say, as you mentioned, in general, there's a pretty large carbon footprint. So what we're looking at doing is to minimize that. Now, I just want to clarify that a lot of people talk about off-grid and this, that, and the other. Well, the reality is technology does not allow us to do completely off-grid yet. I think we may get there someday. But as experienced in, I guess it was last winter in Texas, where a quarter of the power went out because they relied completely on wind and solar, and when it froze up, they didn't have a backup. We're talking about people's lives and livelihoods. If you're on a desert or a private island in the Caribbean and all the power goes out, suddenly there's no wind and many cloudy days, you will have some kind of a backup. But the reality is we can divert most of the energy to wind, solar, geothermal. And those are the types of energy abilities that we have. And just to give you an idea, we have wind turbines. So instead of the big propeller type windmills, if you will, these stand 5-6 feet tall, and they're in the shape of a tulip. And aesthetically, they're pleasing. Aesthetically, they're easier to hide, if you will, but also they're not terribly ugly when you do see them. So those are the kinds of things we're looking at, which fit very well in a resort. You can't imagine having a big windmill in the middle of a luxury resort. So those are the kinds of things we're doing. So getting back to sustainability, that's what we're talking about. Being as sustainable as possible until technology catches up with us. We can garner the energy. We can garner the amount of energy needed. It's storing it that's the problem. And so until we get to the point where and technology gets to the point where you can store that much energy for a luxury resort, then we'll be totally out there.
Yeah, understood. There's a limit to what you can provide in terms of environmental energy solutions and provide your customers the experience that they're looking for. And I'm guessing that's one of the reasons why you're partnering with Terra, right? I mean, they have phenomenal solutions in the sustainable and alternative energy space. I'm guessing that's why you would want to do it and why they'd be the ideal partner for you.
Yeah, and in addition to wind, solar, geothermal, Terra's also got solutions for clean water and wastewater. Wastewater is a big deal, particularly when you're out in the middle of a desert or you're on a private island. You've got to do something with it, and there's a great solution to be able to treat that and then utilize it, reuse it on the property. In addition, Terra's got the organic stuff, which have been teed up over the last many years. Everything from food products to guest room amenities to everything that is needed from an operational standpoint. Cleaning products, for example, that are organic and non-toxic. All these kinds of things come into play into Terra Green Destinations. So we are part of Terra. We haven't just partnered with Terra. We are part of Terra. And all of these solutions are part of what we can bring to the table when we're doing the acquisitions and or partnering with the various investors.
All right. So, Andy, I had a question for you that actually got sent to me. I had people emailing me the same question I had for you. I was in Tamarindo, Costa Rica for a month from mid-November to mid-December. And one of the things that made me laugh there, Costa Rica is a very eco-friendly country, and they market themselves that way. And right across the street from where I was staying was this very, very high-end vegan resort. And, they build themselves as incredibly earth-friendly. They were going to save the planet. And about once a week, the power would go out. For a few minutes to a few hours, it was fine. Everybody managed. And I remember, there were a couple of nights when the neighborhood just went dark, with the exception of this vegan resort. They were going to save the world. And boy, did they have a high-end diesel generator that kicked on really quickly. So they were all for saving the planet as long as their people didn't have to go without air conditioning for more than 20 seconds. And those the diesel generators they were using, they were very loud. You could hear them all over the neighborhood. And for a resort that size, they were going through an enormous amount of fuel. And so, it sort of became a running joke in the neighborhood that they were presenting themselves as having one mission. But when you look at their actual behavior, it was something else. And so the question that kept coming up, right? People were asking me, wait a minute, isn't there some sort of conflict between trying to be a green resort versus a high-end luxury destination, right? How do you guys work with that? How do you do high-end luxury in a way that is environmentally friendly?
I think it starts with the design and the development. There's some really interesting designs. Well, actually, one that we're looking at for the island, which is a very old concept of bringing in cool air and evacuating it through the roof. And that's a very interesting design. It's been used for years in places like Hawaii and so forth that keep breezes going through the property. That doesn't mean it's going to cool it completely, but it is an alternative way to do so. So from the design standpoint, making sure that in our case, the luxury tents or the lodge units are positioned so that they get the breezes and not too much of the sun and so forth in the warm climates and vice versa in the cold climates. Those are all pieces that are very important. Again, rooftop gardens. We were talking about one in the UAE that where we have the opportunity to create something in a very pristine area that's lush, and being able to do gardens on rooftops there makes a lot of sense because of the intense heat in the summertime. So those are the kinds of things just from a design standpoint. And then as you go through the rest of it and making sure that you do have various layers of power, for example, with some type of a backup. I'm not talking about a huge diesel generator, but some type of a backup to keep people comfortable. And obviously, you've got to make sure people are healthy and so forth. But the reality is that there's so many things that you can do during the design phase, then the construction phase, and embedding these kinds of things. Water catchment is a good example. Or again, an area, whether it's in the desert or whether it's on a private island, catching clean water, or fresh water, and then putting it through a cleaning process is extremely important. But again, you've got to design the system to catch that water, to hold that water, to be able to clean that water. So those are all parts that go into the process. How do you maintain luxury? Well, for example, the tent facilities that we have are just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, they're much nicer than any even upscale hotel room you would find, because they have sitting areas, they have the bed areas, they've got outdoor screened-in porches, they've got a beautiful bathroom. So these are the kinds of things that provide luxury that, again, you really don't find in many of the high-end 5-star resorts that are made out of bricks and mortar. Likewise, you have the ability to cater to, from an operational standpoint, first of all, understand that we're talking about smaller properties here. We're not talking about 1,000 rooms or even hundreds of rooms. So personal experience is very, very important. And that's a lot of what people believe luxury is that personal experience. And for instance, Gary, if you and your family go to a resort, part of the gathering of information is finding out what you want to do. What are the interests? What are the ages? What are the dietary constraints, et cetera? Getting all that together and then catering to you along the lines of your needs and wishes is, to me, one of the ultimates in luxury.
Yeah, Andy, I love that answer. You guys aren't doing like Vegas style gigantic concrete construction.
No.
This really starts from the ground up in terms of design and making sure that these principles go into every aspect of construction and design. It's a great answer.
Yeah, one other thing I might mention too is that a lot of it depends on the culture. So, for example, in the UAE, we're talking about a Volkwein style development. So it's an indigenous development. And juxtapose that to these major cities like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, which are just incredible and have this spectacular architecture. This is sort of the antithesis of that in this gorgeous, pristine area in a very indigenous Volkwein type environment. And again, very high end in terms of food, in terms of beverage, in terms of service, in terms of accommodations and experiences, but very, very different than what you would find in the other sort of Middle Eastern big cities.
All right, great. So, Andy, for the people who are interested in Terra Green Destinations, not even necessarily as a potential guest, but is there the opportunity for people to invest alongside you? Where are you guys in the fundraising process? How much are you looking to raise? And if people were interested, what kinds of terms are you offering? And where do you stand in that process right now?
Yeah, we're currently in the fundraising. Just to give you an idea, our first fund will start at $50 million. We are looking for minimum investments of $250,000. The terms, the returns, again, you've been in the hedge fund business, so you know that we can't promise any specific returns, but they are very, very similar to, well, not similar. They're very, very much like the returns that you would get in other hospitality investments, which over the last 20 years has been a very good investment environment. Even with the downturns, it's been a good environment. So while we can't specifically say what kind of return you're going to get, it's certainly going to be better than the types of returns that you would normally get on a retirement vehicle or something like that. So yeah, it is open, but there are also other ways to support us, and that would be to, once we open up the properties, to come visit and to be a guest. We're also looking for ideas. If people know about destinations that sort of fit our parameters, looking for that best practices with regards to operating, because there are just great ideas every day that come up, and we're not opposed to using other people's ideas, particularly when they'll work. So those are the kinds of things that people can do to be involved. The other thing I should mention also is we have a real educational component. So, for example, let's talk about the Northern Baja property. The education there would be everything from wildlife to the plants, the trees, etc., but also the petroglyphs. What's the history behind those? What's the history behind that part of the world? Why did an oasis pop up in the middle of a dry lake bed? Those are all opportunities for education. But we can also, in all of these resorts, be the site for further education. I'll give you an example. In the property that we're looking at in the Caribbean, they already have an educational component there. University of Denver, Wake Forest, and one of the other major Ivy League colleges are already doing, and have been for years, doing their marine science programs. Northwestern was the other one, out of that particular facility. So those are the kinds of educational opportunities as well. And so there's an opportunity there for people to get involved.
All right. Sounds great. Andy, thank you so much. Amazing description. For everyone who's listening, if you are interested in investing in Terra Green Destinations, get in touch with the people at Terra. If there are any deep knowledge investing clients or contacts on the call and you're not sure who to get in touch with at Terra, just email me at ir@deepknowledgeinvesting.com and we will put you directly in touch with the people at Terra. And for those of you who are curious about Terra Green Destinations, keep an eye on what they're doing. It looks like you'll have the chance to travel, hopefully later this year. I'm Gary Brode from Deep Knowledge Investing. We want to thank our partners at Terra Group, who are doing phenomenal work in such a wide variety of areas. Like I said earlier, we have great programming coming up on consumer products, charitable giving, and farming technology in the next few weeks. And Andy, good luck with Terra Green Destinations, and thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, and thank everybody that dialed in today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, everyone, thank you so much for your time. All right, Andy, great job, and we'll be cheering for you.
Thank you.